Welcome back to Data Center Battlegrounds. Today we're going to be reacting to the Young Turks, whom I haven't seen in God knows how long, and Americans put data centers on notice. That's the name of the YouTube video. And you can probably guess like what we're going to be talking about today, which is the Sanders slash AOC bill to halt data center construction. For reference, they introduced the first piece of policy with this back in March. Now in June, they pushed it. They pushed a version of it to the House for context.
Despite growing nationwide bipartisan opposition to the construction and expansion of data centers, the government thus far has done effectively nothing other than, I guess, incentivize it. In fact, making
I was gonna say they've stripped so much when it comes to accelerating, like for example, NEPA. National Environmental Policy Act, like permitting processes, like speed to power is accelerated under this current administration, and it's actually the opposite. It's incentivizing the build out.
it even worse. But today, AOC and Bernie Sanders introduced House and Senate versions of the Artificial Intelligence Data Center Moratorium Act, which would stop the construction or expansion of data centers until new protections are put in place. And by protections, I mean regulations that consider a wide variety of different types of damage that these data centers can do. So it includes things like federal review and approval of AI products before public release. So
I think a really interesting thing about the House bill is that it's put together like AI product slash safety issues. So like economic issues, job displacement as a result of like AI models becoming like super smart. And then also at the same time, data centers and their corresponding environmental, economic, and like social benefits and challenges. So the House bill actually like takes two worlds, data centers and AI models, and puts them together, which is very interesting from a tactic. I guess like when they were writing the bill, they were like, well, if we do two bills, it probably, doesn't really have too much of a chance to pass. But if we do one that combines everything, it's a typical public policy measure. Some interesting things on the list here. Federal review and approval of AI products before public release. That's interesting given the Fable, the Fable 5 model and like what's happened with Anthropic. So there was the meme going around about Anthropic begging the US government to regulate, let's just say Mythos class models. Search it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. And then they actually did something and then it shocked Anthropic and caught them way off guard. Fable comes back quite recently, but then it apparently sucks according to the benchmarks. So it's interesting. And then the thing that catches my eye, besides the electricity costs and the mandatory union jobs, zero government subsidies, the local community veto power. It's super interesting because what I normally see is the city council deliberating on the final decision for a yay or nay on a data center project. So local community veto power as the final say is like a very interesting tactic. And I think I've seen also some other case studies about that too.
And that's, by the way, something that Donald Trump is saying they want to do anyway, so that these models are not going out in a form that would do damage in a variety of ways through non-consensual deep fakes or the creation of chemical weapons or whatever. Proof that new facilities won't increase electricity costs for nearby communities, a significant economic concern. Mandatory union jobs and zero government subsidies for qualifying AI data centers. Local community veto power over siting decisions, which in some cases exist in some areas, but you've probably also seen news of areas voting against it and the data centers being built anyway, which is enraging. And I would love to commend the American people for not responding to that in an insane way. I'm surprised. Anyway.
Wonder if the Young Turks are vehemently anti-data center. I'm curious like what their position would be. We'll have to search it up after the channel. I don't know. I haven't watched the Young Turks in like so many years. I'm surprised they're still around, honestly, but I guess they're still huge. I might be completely wrong about this, but I think they're progressive liberal. I'm not sure. I forgot. I'm going to be completely wrong. Just don't crucify me on that.
There's also a ban on exporting US AI computing infrastructure to countries without similar sorts of safety and environmental laws. So they were not just putting it somewhere else and then they do a bunch of damage or whatever with the models and everything. So they would also task the Secretary of Energy with looking into things like water usage, energy costs, greenhouse gas emissions, wastewater discharge, noise levels as well.
Interesting list. So water and energy, mainstream impacts, right? greenhouse gas emissions, so carbon. We've talked about that with Google and Amazon sustainability reports. The wastewater discharge is very interesting as well. We covered a case study where there was this bacteria that had grown just in like a closed loop water system in one state in particular, I forget, but it was such an issue that the local county had taken away the contractors like discharge permits with the presence of like the bacteria in like the water reclamation facility after the water that had been ingested for cooling had been treated, if I'm remembering the case correct. We covered it in one of the news segments. And then finally, noise is the esoteric or the unsexy, impact. Surprised that light pollution hasn't been mentioned here. And then the other thing that is very interesting. So I think these are like quantifiable like metrics, right? So I'm curious to see like in the case of noise, like how do you measure like physical harm if the data centers are emitting like below a certain decibel and the mental health impacts that are corresponding from that? That's one thing that I've been wondering to myself. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Water, energy, carbon emissions, wastewater, noise, light. Surprised not to see like anything about like ecological impacts, climate risk with like flooding. I mean, the list goes on, so I guess you got to start somewhere.
I would assume also pollution. That's been a significant concern.
Air pollution.
I know that some of the XAI places in Tennessee just have like a bunch of jet engines burning fossil gas and poisoning the communities there. So
it's true.
It's good trade to see at least a couple of politicians that are like, hey, rather than just let all of these be built and then it's locked in and it seems like there's nothing we can do, they look out there and they see that people are enraged all over the country, Democrats as well as Republicans, and they're actually doing something about it. I think it's quite
well. They don't have a choice. It's AI and or data centers are bipartisan issues. They will decide the fate of whoever like runs for election at like the local, state, or even like federal level. So he speaks as if like he's surprised. They don't have a choice. Like if you're not talking about these issues, you're going to encounter at least like one of those two things in some respect, be it job displacement or a data center being built in your backyard. So you shouldn't be surprised.
Quite wise. What do you think?
Yeah. It's always the same ones. It feels like, they always come from the Progressive Caucus. Funny how that works. But I look, you were talking about how to like politicians every level. So you mentioned outside of Memphis. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But when people vote against it and they do it anyway, you probably saw that clip, which I guess is like has been disputed but not proven to be false or anything yet. But it's like it's somewhat. Up for debate, but there was a clip of Governor Gretchen Whitmer on a hot mic saying about this exact situation, saying to like a big AI guy, well, you know how it goes. We're used to people saying hell no, but then we just do it anyway. And that is enraging is the word you used. And that's exactly correct. Cause it's like, it feels like more and more people, it feels to me like almost no one wants or likes these things on either side of the aisle, and it just has not mattered. And
that is false. There are places that want data centers. I mean, it might not necessarily be in great amounts, but for example, Loudoun County in Virginia, I mean, I saw a protest the other day where there was the anti-data center folks and there was the pro-data center folks. And then I know in Texas, there's like a large contingent of the state that wants data centers in their backyard. I think you're going to have a mix, honestly. Like, look, there are places where you should not be building a data center. That is abundantly clear. Like, to give you another local example here, I think in Prince William County, which is in Virginia, yeah. So there was a massive data center project called the Prince William Digital Gateway Corridor, which would have just been absolutely humongous. And it would have impacted apparently like this historic battlefield site called the Manassas Battlefield something. And it ultimately, like this was a multi-year battle between the data center developer, protesters, everything. And it finally got, I can't say it out loud because of YouTube, but it finally got dissolved. Like the data center developer, I think after years, finally just said like, this ain't worth it, dude. It's like multiple years. Yes, this would have been a massive project. There would have been a lot of money, but the community just doesn't want it. So we're just not going to build here. So you go to where data centers are welcomed, and that's where you build. Now, the question is, where is that? You see? Because like in the news, you will always, like, I always see a lot of negative case studies, but I've also seen positive ones as well. So again, all I'm trying to say is that there are better places to build data centers. I've seen studies that have said that like the optimum place to build data centers are out in like Montana, Wyoming, maybe certain areas of the Rust Belt as well, just because of the infrastructure that's already there and it's like economically decrepit, So there are like good places to build, and I'm sure those would be welcomed. But again, the way that we're building all this stuff is clearly wrong. Stop building gigawatt data centers. Like, why damn, I almost cursed. Why are we building with such a massive focus on hyperscale AI data centers? Like, why can't we take the modular approach? That's what NVIDIA and the other startup is trying to do, where they stick a modular data center in your home. If you approve it, they cover and that's pilot projects. Like, to be fair, that's not taken off just yet, but it's an example of like decentralized computing spread out over across like, folks that like actually want it in their home. Like, that's the type of thinking that we need, not going all in on hyperscale AI data centers, because it's clearly not working.
It's like this stuff is growing so fast. We've already wrapped like our whole damn economy up in it for some reason, without even really understanding. Most of them aren't profitable, the companies, I think, and how they ever will be. Specifically, people are just like, well, it'll be AI and it'll be smart enough to figure out how to be good. And it's like, okay.
Okay, so he's right. Like the burn rates on the like the AI companies, and frankly capex for data centers is ridiculously large. Like, we're talking $1 trillion, I think, in 2027, and then afterwards it'll be like multi-trillions if the build out continues in scale, assuming a increasing number. So yes, there are questions over whether or not this AI/data center bubble will pop. Is it like 2008? All these different things.
It just seems like insanely speculative and risky for reasons that are not apparently worth it. And the environmental cost is so much. And outside of Memphis, Tennessee, they're powering a data center with like 57 like gas powered turbines that are each one is the size of a house, right?
Well,
and
I don't know about that,
related to AOC and Bernie trying to pass this law, according to the Clean Energy Act, or an actual law from like the 60s or 70s. You can't just do that, right? But they are, though. And what's going to happen, I don't know. It's like that, ask for forgiveness instead of permission thing, except.
Well, it's the build fast and what's the mantra in the tech industry? Like, build fast and make mistakes, something like that. It's I forget like the damn expression. Build fast and break things. There it is. Yeah. Build fast and break things. Or no, sorry, move fast and break things. The Silicon Valley philosophy. Yeah. I mean, that is true. Yes. It's move fast and break things. In the case of XAI, I believe they took advantage of local law loopholes to be able to do what they're doing with the 57 gas turbines. The irony is that they actually got the air permits from the local city council folks or just government after quite the fuss was made about it, but it was only up into a certain amount. Like, it wasn't like the full 57, it was like only 40 or something. So he's asking like how this happened, and again, they just moved forward like with this, of course, and then they exploited like local loopholes in like the law of the state to be able to do this. That's how. But what he's also not saying is that this administration, their priority is like fast tracking like depermitting processes. Like I told you this before with NEPA, Clean Air Act. This is the norm. This is what's going to start happening unless there is enough community opposition so that it turns.
They know, at least with the people that are in charge right now, they won't have to ask for forgiveness, or if they do, it'll be given, carte blanche. So like even with laws that we do have that should prevent at least some of the more egregious examples of this, They're just doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So
no, 100%.
Something's got to give.
Yeah, people don't want it. As you said, it doesn't appear to be profitable literally at all. It's all just a massive bubble. The companies that have the data centers aren't profitable. The traffic that they have so far is corporations. The corporations are saying they need to scale it back because it's too expensive to use, and even when they were using it, it wasn't profitable. So
the token maxing epidemic with enterprise, which is where the money is, like if you look at the breakdown of like profit, I guess, if you want to even call it that, from like AI specifically, of course the majority is going to be in enterprise like level contracts, right? But even these like big companies are saying like, holy, like macro, like our token maxing costs are through the roof, so we got to cut back. So this is what's feeding this like uncertainty.
Again, I didn't go to money school, so I can't figure it out. But I can look at a poll. And apparently so can AOC and Bernie. People don't like it. 7 in 10 Americans oppose local construction of AI data centers. That is a lot, considering that it's only been an issue for a couple of years. 53% say that they oppose building a nuclear energy plant in their area, which means that far more are opposed to a data center than a nuclear power plant, which I think also makes a lot of sense. But it's in terms of like, the thing people think of when they think of these areas, that's pretty amazing. In fact, the highest opposition to local nuclear power plant construction opposition ever got was 63%. Data centers are higher than that. The nuke centers have ever been, which is pretty amazing. And I also want to remind everyone that Bernie Sanders earlier this month unveiled his plan to create a $7 trillion sovereign wealth fund through a one-time 50% tax on the stock of the largest AI companies. Basically taking back that value from them that only exists because they stole everything we've ever said, done, created, or produced to create their products. That way we would have voting control over what these companies do.
So what he's referring to is this like concept of AI as a public good. So it's funny that he's saying this because recently OpenAI offered, I think, the Trump administration a 5% stake in like the company, or proposed that as a way to kind of like get the public interested, or at least like vested into like this company. He's been, to follow the pattern, he's been doing this, he being the Trump administration in this regard, has been doing this with quantum companies, with rare earth mineral companies, like all these different things. So in a way, you can say that, if your 401k is like diversified enough, you, the average American watching this, might own a piece of like, a big AI company moving forward. The concept of the sovereign wealth fund takes it a little bit further, where I think that if it's like a 50% ownership, like in all of the frontier labs that are maybe nationalized one day, and or the big like tech companies, then it gives like the public like a bigger stake, and like even maybe voting rights to some extent. Plus, if we have like a sovereign wealth fund, let's say that's worth like, I don't know, let's say everyone chips in, the collective worth is like a couple trillion. That could be a form of universal basic income, where if your job gets displaced by AI, you can, you just submit like a claim like, hey, my employer told me that I was getting fired because of AI. I need help. This is like the new version of unemployment.
Would generate money through them operating. And again, they only operate because of what we have already done. Never forget that.
Yeah, final thoughts go to you. Even in a best case scenario where it is some kind of like tech utopia eventually, like where it does replace everything and handles it all or whatnot, what are they going to do? They would have to then like pay everyone or take care of everybody, right? Or
UBI.
Everyone will just burn everything down, or the robots kill all the people and then it's fine, I guess. But what I'm saying is like there has to be some value and incentive for the actual people who live here for this stuff to just continue on unfettered, because eventually it will take everyone's job and ruin everyone's life. So it's like I don't know how they expect to ever get people on board with it if they don't do something like that. But I guess they don't care. I don't know. They just seem to just not care.
Yeah.
Well, he's right in the sense where like what I see with the tech CEOs in the media, how are these people so like what's the word in English where like you're like you're removed from just like the average everyday like struggles of like the average American. Like there's a word to describe it. Like yeah, removed, I guess, but there was another word that I was thinking of. Anyway, it just like it's so weird to me that these like tech CEOs like the head of Palantir, Mark Zuckerberg with Meta, OpenAI with Sam Altman. I mean, all these tech CEOs appear to have this like such a strange similarity where they appear so removed from just like what the average person feels and does. And it's just like, how do you get to that point? Is it because of just like the sheer amount of power and wealth that you have? Just because, like, as a result of the big tech stuff that's going on? Peter Thiel is another great example of that. I mean, the man literally said, I am the Antichrist. And then there's the whole secret society apparently that got leaked, like his secret society. So I don't know. I mean, I just want people to, like, I'm not anti data center. Like I really do believe that like we need additional data center capacity in the US, not to compete with China, but like I really think the true value of generative AI is and I've said this before with like other folks in DC, like I think the real value with generative AI is in scientific applications like drug discovery, curing cancer, solving diseases, extending the human lifespan, not biohacking, but like distributing the benefits to everybody in society, closing the damn economic wealth gap that's so prevalent with the top 1% and the rest of us. I'm a humble YouTuber making videos and commenting on data center buildouts. I'm not a trillionaire, but I want like this diffusion of benefit to like I don't know. I want the diffusion of benefits with data centers and generative AI to reach everybody in society, not just like a certain class of people. And it's like, why is it happening the way that it is? I'll leave you with that.
So
well, yeah, there's so many and politicians at both sides that have been bought by these tech companies, the AI companies, the data center companies, and I hate it. And they don't get how angry people are getting. But this is what actual populism is. Populism, it turns out, does not just have to be demonizing Haitians or whatever. It can be actually responding to the significant economic concerns of the people. And it's why I am really hoping we have an awesome, smart, progressive running in 2028. Perhaps even one of those two. That would be great.
Well, setting that aside with like the politics about who's running in 2028, I'm curious what their political denomination is. Oh wow, they're on IMDb. Political leaning. I'm just curious because okay, so they're left wing, progressive, and populist. Okay, yeah, so they're Sanders or they're left. I sometimes forget the right wing versus left wing stuff. So they're supporters of Sanders and AOC because they are liberal progressives. I would also assume that they're supporters of Mandami in New York, maybe with like the Democrat Socialist area, but I know that's slightly different than like being a progressive. So anyway, very interesting. Look, will this House bill pass ultimately, and will we see like a national moratorium? I personally don't think so. I think what instead is likely to happen is the bill will fail. I hate to be a pessimist, but the Republicans control kind of everything at the moment. But I think like what this will encourage states to do is take a look at the bill, see what the main like environmental, social, and economic challenges and benefits are, and then allow them to make their own decisions. We're already seeing that in different like areas. So it's interesting, and like I do wonder what's going to happen at the end of the day. But that's all I have for you today. Very interesting video. Love doing these things. Like, share, and subscribe. I will see you on another episode of Data Center Battlegrounds.